Hello again, Weston Kincade, bestselling author. Today we're going to read a story I wrote called PermaDrunk. I think you'll enjoy it, so let's get it on. Have you ever witnessed the unexplainable? Watched the impossible become possible? Recorded the events in a little yellow notepad, even though you didn't believe your eyes? I have. My name's Richard Stetler, journalist for the Fran Daily. It may not be a glamorous gig, but it pays the bills right now. What's more, I've been tasked with researching and writing about this year's wealthiest bachelor in San Francisco, Dirk Minowitz. Pretty lame gig, you might be thinking, but you'd be wrong. Dirk is the luckiest man alive, no matter how you look at it. Imagine you went out to a bar one night, like anyone would, and nothing out of the ordinary happens. However, the next morning you're still drunk, and the morning after that, and the one after that. No joke, that's how it happened, at least according to Dirk. I got it straight from the horse's mouth in my interview. What's more, he never touches a drop of alcohol. Seriously, but he's still drunk. That's right, still drunk, 2 years later. I wouldn't believe it either, except I've spent the last couple weeks following the guy around. Better yet, he's now a celebrity. When he walks down the street, it's like he stepped onto the Cheers set where everyone knows your name. He'll stumble down the sidewalk, something he's become a master at by now, without falling once. And he'll greet everyone he passes on the way, kissing a baby or two in the process. It defies logic. If Spock were around, he'd have a mental hernia trying to figure it out. But that's Dirk Minowitz, wealthy real estate investor, socialite, and the official San Francisco drunk. Oh, by the way, did I tell you he was running for mayor? The polls have him leading by leaps and bounds. Who would have thought? 1 year later. When after when? How does this guy do it? Everything seems to go his way, and he just stumbles through it like a glossy-eyed hobo in the latest Armani suit. Over the last year, Dirk Minowitz has become nearly God in the eyes of San Franciscans. If it says anything about his celebrity, last month he was the cover model for the Who's Who of San Fran, a highly esteemed local celebrity mag. In high roller offices around here, it's always on the center table next to Forbes. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I guess it's been a while since I added to this story. After a landslide victory over what's-his-name, Dirk was elected mayor. Mayor! To top it off, after my initial story about the guy's rise to success, Liza, my editor at San Fran Daily, got it into her head that I should continue following the lucky bastard around. Seriously? Come on. But I have to give credit where credit is due. The story he told me seems to be right. I have never seen him touch a drop, but sober isn't in his vocabulary. It's a story if I ever saw one. Now, you might be thinking, it must be an act. Believe me, it isn't. One of the stipulations of his taking office was that he had to be sober at work, but that didn't last long. They blood tested him time and again. Every time, he popped the legal limit by a mile. It got so bad they hooked a breathalyzer up to his sedan's ignition. It wouldn't start unless he blew below the legal limit. After missing 3 council meetings and finally the United States Conference of Mayors because the damned car wouldn't start, the city council finally did away with it, and the decked-out Beamer. Instead, Dirk Minowitz became Uber's first Visa Platinum subscription member, paid for by good old San Francisco taxpayers. Talk about a trickle-down effect. At least those tax dollars are going back to local citizens. The city council didn't give up, though. Before breakfast, midday, in the evening, they tested him over and over. Each time, it was the same as before. The guy is permanently drunk. As a result, they looked the other way on that election stipulation. Guess you can't penalize that guy for genetics, or whatever caused it. But that didn't stop him. Instead, they mandated that he regularly attend AA meetings. And he did. He hasn't missed one. In fact, he's so dedicated that the weekly meetings have become a sounding board for his sketch comedy acts. They've never had such an easy time getting people to attend. But I'm still not sure about his story. I've never heard of something like that. I've written article after article about the guy, from voting practices and political leanings to his driving record and what he has for breakfast. A bran muffin, 2 slices of bacon, and a glass of orange juice if you missed the article. My Twitter followers started calling me the Shadow. I guess I might as well accept it as God's honest truth. Hell, his bodyguard knows me by name. It comes in handy when he's trying to support Dirk after a long workday. I first noticed the familiarity when he said, "Richard, could you grab my gun?" He was trying to point at the sidewalk where it had dropped in his struggle to keep Mr. Minowitz vertical. Talk about trust. However, this got me thinking. What started all of this? If his story was to be believed, then he wasn't always this way. I just had to find people who knew him before and see what changed. Or maybe he was born this way. This wasn't too hard to discover, and it brought me to today, sitting here in this dark cesspool of a pub, jotting ideas on a yellow steno pad. No, Dirk wasn't always this way. His story, history, if you don't mind the play on words, seems to be just as he said. It comes down to a pub, one down on his luck real estate broker, and something else. I'm not sure what or how Mr. Minowitz wound up with this strange condition, but my gut tells me there's more to it. I look around, blinking at the stray rays of sunlight streaming through the far windows. The booth and table I'm sitting at are sticky. I avoid touching it. At least the glass seems clean. I take a swig of beer, close the notepad, and stuff it into my pocket. This is where it all went down. I verified it with a cab driver, prior co-worker, and Mr. Minowitz himself. But what happened? This lead might answer the question. Glancing around, I scan the few people nursing their beers after work. I can't help but notice the isolation of the businessmen and women in attendance. They all look to have stopped by separately after work, like the local AA meeting got out, and they all came to the same place, each hiding his or her face in a mug of shame. If I half expected to see a pile of abandoned chits on a table in the middle of the room, but none are the person I'm looking for. Megan Schlitz contacted me saying she knows the truth, and that brought me here, to this hole in the wall beneath the Dumbarton Rail Bridge. As I scan the sparse crowd, an elegant woman walks through the door with a floral shawl over her head, sunglasses, a sundress that is about as out of place as a Dachshund puppy in a wild tiger's cage, and a clear stick up her ass. It's like she stepped straight out of 1950s Hollywood into the slums of 1800s London. It's clearly her, Megan Schultz. No one else would set foot in a place like this, dressed like that. A slight wave of my hand grabs her attention, and she strides over, sliding into the seat with a grimace. "Richard?" I nod and shake her hand. "Nice to meet you, Megan." "Yes, that's fine," she answers, seemingly preoccupied by the grime all around. I already dislike her. "So why did you want to meet here?" I ask, knowing the answer, but still surprised she would suggest it. Removing her sunglasses, she gives me a knowing glance. "Right." She glances around warily. "You know why I'm here." "Yes, I do." "So you want to talk weather, kittens, YouTube, the latest funny videos?" This got me a scathing glare. "Of course not," she says. "Are you joking?" I shake my head. "No, just thought I'd cut through the BS." Taking a shaky breath, she calms down a notch. "So you want to know about Dirk Minowitz?" It isn't a question. "Not the general details, the good stuff. What started it all? Care to relieve yourself? Get it off your ample chest?" Her eyes widen and chest heaves with a shocked intake of breath. "You don't have to be rude." I know I don't have to. I just can't help myself. I think Dirk might be rubbing off. Taking a deep breath, I still my pounding heart. I'm a journalist. I can't act this way, I chide myself. What's wrong with me? A moment later I ask, "So, what do you know?" Her crystal blue gaze falls to the table. "I know, or knew him. He was a real estate salesman, then finally became a broker." I nod. I'd come across all of this in my research. A woman at the bar belched loudly, and an overworked businessman strode in, loosening his tie. It was fine. The business was doing well enough, but not great, but good. He made enough to stop here for a drink most days before coming home. Megan's sincere tone and her use of the word home catches my attention. She did not say how she knew him, but this clearly indicated a closer relationship. "He wasn't the best guy to have around. You might have come across that in your interviews." "Yep, that's right." She nods. "I thought as much." A cowboy thumps the jukebox. Rascal Flatts' Life is a Highway begins crooning throughout the dingy bar. This place is getting busier. It tends to, Megan says. The quiet drunks will filter out, and the younger crowd takes over the later it gets. Dirk was one of the few who could stand the noise. He just kept to his stool and matched them drink for drink. Her words yet again give me the impression she knows more than she's revealing. There is also an undertone of dislike. I sip at my beer, contemplating how to approach the topic. Something still feels off, but going off half-cocked like earlier is more likely to push her away. Look, I understand that you don't like him, but what's your angle? What do you get out of this get-together? Her eyes harden to icy blue orbs as she stares at me. The innocence within has vanished. You really don't get it, do you? Caught off guard, I sputter, No, I don't. A waitress brings her a full mug. One I don't remember Megan ordering. And she takes a long drink. I unconsciously match her. You see, she begins after taking a moment to compose herself. Dirk is my father. She looks ashamed, barely able to meet my gaze. This explains how she has more intimate knowledge of Dirk's whereabouts, though not what she was doing in a pub with him 3 years ago. Something still feels off. I try to focus on what, but the edges of my vision are growing fuzzy. This beer packs more of a kick than I realized. I guess following Dirk around so much has left me as sober as him most of the time, I conclude. Gotta work on my tolerance. Can't have so much blood getting into my alcohol stream. When my thoughts finally come back to our conversation, I ask, so why don't you call him Dad? The journalist within me kicks as soon as the word leaves my lips. Thankfully, Megan's eyes only tighten a little. Dirk wasn't a good father. He drank a lot, and I try to stay focused, but her words descend into a mumbled buzz as a pair of college students walk in and settle down at the bar, laughing boisterously and clinking mugs as soon as they are filled. The man nursing his sorrows, a seat down, glares their way, pays his check, and grudgingly walks out. So when he left us, Megan continues, dragging my attention back, I thought it was over. I told myself it was a blessing, and it was. The first year, the sound of the air conditioner turning on rattles the ducts and sends a puff of dust into the air overhead. Each particle seems to sparkle in the yellow light. Her animated voice draws me back once more. And when I found out she died at his hands, I couldn't bear it. It could not be coincidence. I swore I'd get him back. That's why I became an alchemist. An alchemist? I can't help but ask. Alchemists haven't existed since the Middle Ages. I should know. I did my dissertation on communication throughout history, from oral traditions to newspapers, stories, and written lores. I pause, unsure whether I said all of that or just thought it. Megan smiles. They exist. We just do not advertise, unlike some wizards who seem to like the yellow pages. Wizards? Yellow pages? Alchemists? I can't help but feel lost and quite foggy. Glancing down, I see that my glass is empty. I don't remember drinking all that. So I try to force my thoughts back to the topic at hand. You're an alchemist? She nods. And you are drunk. I glance at my empty drink again. I think so. The threads of Megan's story finally click into place like a blazing fire. Sitting up straight, I nearly shout, And you doped his drinks! Megan glances around confidently. The bartender waves. She returns it nonchalantly before turning back to me. Yes, she hisses. How better to ruin his life than with the same drink that killed my mother? Whether he was just driving drunk or plowed her down out of spite, he deserves everything that's coming his way. But it didn't work. At this, she seems to pout, folding her arms beneath her bosom and capturing my attention better than anything before. I can't look away, like the dress itself is calling my name. I'm up here, she says, lifting my chin with a finger. Her condescending gaze is both haughty and malevolent. To answer your question, yes, you are right. It backfired. I'm pretty sure it has to do with the trace elements of leprechaun lineage remaining in our blood. Rather than scoff, the mention of such small-statured beings causes me to look her up and down, this time leaning unsteadily out of the booth to see her toes. I don't see any leper lineage. Not leper, she sighs with frustration. Forget it. It doesn't matter. I have clearly gotten what I want. What you want? I ask, the words straining. A voice cackles from the back of the bar. I scan the room, but I can't identify who it was in the growing throng. The noise was insane, like it came from the most deranged clown you can think of. Yes, what I want. You don't think I came here to help you, do you? The gears struggle to turn in my head to make sense of what Megan is saying, but it's like something has gummed up the works. Another voice, this one a woman's, cackles from behind me. I spin and glance at the wood-paneled wall. Nothing. I look up. The ducks? Something's in the ducks! I try to calm myself reassuringly. Just the drink. It's just the drink. Megan smiles as my frantic gaze settles back on her. This time I reworked the formula. It was correct before, just not for Dirk. But making you permanently drunk wouldn't be enough. This time I added mercury. Mercury? But why's me? Although it didn't work as expected on him, who better than Dirk Minowitz's best friend? The drunk madness will ruin his reputation just through association. It's perfect! She practically glows with the statement, bouncing in her seat. This time, my eyes aren't drawn to her jiggling cleavage. Nausea engulfs the pit of my stomach, and new voices add to the chorus echoing through my head. As the dark fog closes in, one thing comes to mind. Crap! Damn leprechauns. The end. Thank you again for joining us for Story Glimpse. I hope you enjoyed PermaDrunk. Again, this is Weston Kincade, best-selling author. And if there's anything that we can add, please leave a comment below or subscribe and ring the bell. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for coming. Have a great day.